The views and opinions expressed on this program are not those of Norfolk State University or WNSB-FM. Thank you for listening.
On 91, your choice for hip-hop and R&B soul. Hampton Roads Voices. Yeah, a new episode is tonight. The taboo of mental health in the black community. Kilo is here, and I have special guest experts with me today. We'll get to who they are in a little bit. But yeah, make sure you keep it locked right here. It's Hot 91. Hot 91, your choice for hip-hop and R&B soul. Hey, yes. If you're hearing my voice, then you already know it's time for Hampton Roads Voices. Woo! And it's a brand new episode tonight. We are discussing the taboo of mental health in the black community. What a way to kick off Black History Month, right? Yes, of course. So we're going to be tackling subjects all month long that really get you thinking and really tackle issues that we should be talking about in our community. And of course, it wouldn't be Hampton Roads Voices if we didn't offer solutions. And that's where our special guest experts come in. So tonight, we're going to have two special guest experts who we have here in the studio right now. We have Dr. Ernestine Duncan. Yes, she is the chair of the psychology department of the Norfolk State University. Hello there, Dr. Duncan. I got your mic way up here. Hold on. My bad.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here again.
Yes, thank you for being here. Yes, if you remember all of my Hampton Roads Voice listeners, she was on the show about being healthy, and we had Dr. Newby on that show, and then we had Dr. Duncan. But now we're talking about all mental health, so this is definitely your arena. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have also George Enos. He's a clinical social work therapist. He's on his way. I try to get him to call in, but I want him to focus and make sure he gets here safe and sound. So he'll be here in a minute. Okay, so of course we have you, Hampton Roads. We want you to call in and give us your 2 cents. You make the show go. So that's exactly what we're going to do, okay? I'm going to throw out a question, and then I want you to give us a call at 823-9110, 823-9110. And you let us know, how are you dealing with your disorder? Do you suffer from, or you don't even have to suffer from, do you have a mental disorder or a mental condition, I'm going to call it, like PTSD or depression or et cetera, schizophrenia, et cetera, like that? How are you dealing with that? If you had any troubles when you first got diagnosed, how did you overcome that? How did you find help? You know what I always say, your testimony really can help somebody else. So give us a call and let us know. And when we return, we're going to get right into this conversation. 823-9110, 757-823-9110. Hampton Roads Voices, the taboo of mental health in the black community. Keep it locked. It's Hot 81. Hot 81, your choice for hip-hop and R&B soul. Hello there. We are nice and settled now. And I have both of my special guest experts in with me. It is Hampton Roads Voices. And tonight we are kicking off Black History Month the right way, talking about the issues that we should be and presenting you with solutions. Okay, so tonight we're talking about the taboo of mental health in the black community. And I know that you know what I'm talking about. Oh, baby, it's okay. Just, pray about it and it'll be all right. Oh, we just ignore it. That's just how he is. No. Okay. Of course, we're going to pray about it, but we're also going to go out and get the help and the resources that God has provided for us. Like therapists, like psychologists, like doctors. People are here for you to get healthy. Just like, if you have a heart attack or if you break your arm, we going to pray that everything is going to be all right. And we know that everything is going to be all right, but you got to go see a doctor, right? Exactly. It's the same thing for your mental health. It's the same thing for your emotional health. So, not just black people, but we are focusing on our community because, like I said, like the title is, it's such a taboo. All right. So this is a safe place. We are creating a very safe place for you right here on Hot 91. So I threw out a question for you. How are you dealing with your condition? I have disorder right here on this paper, but I don't like the word disorder. Condition. How are you dealing with your condition? Do you have PTSD? Are you suffering from depression, bipolar disorder? How are you dealing with your condition? Share your testimony. 823-9110, 823-9110. Before we get to the phone lines, because we do have a phone call, I'm going to introduce my special guest experts yet again. So I have Dr. Ernestine Duncan. She is the chair of the psychology department of Norfolk State University. Hello there, ma'am.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here again. And I also have George Enos. He is a licensed clinical social worker. He does private practice, talk, Kilo. And also he's with the Portsmouth Department of Behavior Health. Say that 3 times fast. Hello there, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, evening.
What time is it?
Good, yes, evening.
Mm-hmm. Let me get your mic right. We gonna get it together today. All right, say hello one more time.
Hello, good
Okay.
evening. How's everybody?
That's what I like to hear.
Good.
All right, so let's get to our phone lines. Let's hop right into the show. Hi, 91, you're live on the air. Who am I speaking with?
This is Mike. How you doing? How's everyone?
We're doing great.
Yeah,
Everybody's
we're doing
good.
good.
Thank you for
How are you?
calling, and thank you for listening to the show. What's your comment, question, or concern?
Well, I just wanted to respond to the question. I do suffer from PTSD. I was in the military 14 years. In 2005, I was out in Iraq, and ever since then, I've been going through a number of things, which I'm getting help for, but it's not one of those conditions that just goes away. Like you said, you made the statement, I got my PTSD and I got my issues, and my wife is big on let's pray about it, let's pray about it, let's pray about it. That's the answer to everything. And that in itself frustrates me because I know it's more than just praying about it. For me, what I currently do, I just try to keep a calm environment. I really don't like going outside of my home too much because of everything that's going on. My heightened sensitivity of just being aware. Noise is something that alerts me more coming back from Iraq than it did in the past. And little things like that, it can cause me to be more defensive when I don't need to be. So just being calm and just, staying in my comfort zone, which is to be in my home all the time, which is not good. So,
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Are you seeing a psychologist or a therapist or a social worker to get help?
Yes. I'm a veteran, so I'm still going to the VA and taking that route to try to resolve this. But I mean, your veterans that went to Vietnam and so forth, they're still having these type of issues.
PTSD is a problem that lots of people have, not only Vietnam veterans, but people who have experienced trauma and had other kinds of traumatic events happen in their life. They experience this and it's ongoing and stuff. But it's important to get help for it. See somebody. Sometimes medication, it doesn't have to be heavy medication, but sometimes mild doses of medication help with the anxiety as well as cognitive. Huh?
I take Zoloft regularly.
Zoloft. Okay, that's a good medication. As well as some cognitive kinds of things about the way you think, the way you see your illness. It's important. I know you said that you stay inside, but it's also important to venture out and do things that are healthy for you as an individual, things that you like to do. It's also important to challenge yourself to get out because if you isolate yourself too much, it increases depression and creates anxiety for you, and you get so isolated that you wouldn't want to go out. So you got to be careful of just staying in the house all the time. And I mean, you would want to go to places that are comfortable for you, environments with friends or family members, especially initially when you're getting out. And then you might venture a little further to other places that you might feel a little bit more comfortable. Just have yourself out. If you get in a situation where you're uncomfortable or you feel like it's going to raise too much anxiety for you, then you can leave and go home.
Another thing that I do, because is I try not to look at social media too much, like Facebook and whatnot. In all honesty, coming back home from Iraq and whatnot, and then having all these shootings, I'm a black male, and I have a son, and for some reason, those things also have heightened my sensitivity, as well as want to make me stay home again. Like, I shouldn't think that, man, if I step outside my house or I'm driving or a cop is behind me or if I get pulled over, I might just get shot. Like, I don't want to think like that. But that's the thought process that I have frequently, and it just makes my heightened sensitivity if my wife goes out with the kids or if I go out with the kids, things of that nature. So
yes, and I really understand that. Those things are called triggers. Because of your experience, there are a whole bunch of things that you've experienced that make you react. And there are little things outside of your home, like noises and traffic and people, and those are triggers. So what you have to be aware of is what your triggers are and how those triggers impact you. So if you get in a trigger and you're experiencing anxiety, you have to realize that that's what it is. And then you have to be able to manage that in some way that's effective for you. Now, some people, for that, they have to have an out. Like I said, get away from the situation. Some do breathing exercises. Some people have to tell themselves, this is cognitive behavioral. They have to tell themselves that they're okay in the situation, that there's nothing in the current situation that's going to harm them or going to bring you any kind of problem. So you got to keep telling yourself that in your mind. That's the cognitive part, because a lot of times people are safe, but because of the noise or the things that are going on, they have some kind of reaction.
All right, I appreciate that. I'm gonna definitely work that out.
Oh, okay.
Because, I'm doing this session now, and they're like, focus on your breathing. Let's
Yes.
do the 5 minutes, listen to your breathing and try to, I guess not allow my mind to wander and, do what it focus on the triggers, I guess.
Yes. Well, I think with most people, and I think it's normal for most people, that your head, you're isolated in your head and you're telling yourself things sometimes that are not necessarily true. So you have to think about what you're thinking about and be able to address your own brain and tell yourself, well, I'm not in danger, or I can get out of this situation. I'm no longer in Iraq. I'm no longer in a war situation. And that helps you to kind of calm yourself down and move through it.
And that's exactly how it feels. So I feel like I'm in a sunken place every day.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I'll work on that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for calling.
Definitely. Have a blessed evening.
You too, sir. We want those calls to continue because this is what this show is all about. 823-9110, 823-9110. We have one more call, and then we're going to hop into the more formal conversation. Hi, 91. What's your comment, question, or concern?
Hi. I'm just calling in about your question.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention I do have severe anxiety, and some of the things that helped me out is I actually talked to my doctor, and she advised me to get a service dog for my anxiety.
Oh, that's interesting. We have a couple of people that come to our clinic in Portsmouth that have service dogs, and especially that is useful for people with PTSD.
Yeah.
They are specially trained to actually help people to stay calm and to address some of their emotional needs when they might be feeling something. So this guy that just called, who was talking about his PTSD, a service dog might be useful for him, but it just depends on the person and what their needs are.
Ma'am, can you tell me, exactly what the dog does for you? Because I've always wondered, when I see people with service dogs, what exactly do they do? Can you enlighten me?
Can I just give a general education of service dogs real quick?
Please do. Yes, please.
She does what you call a deep pressure therapy and light pressure therapy. It's like pressing on the pressure point, and it releases endorphins that calm the body and relax you. So that's what that helps with as far as anxiety.
Okay.
I actually get like severe pain and stuff from it too, so from my anxiety too. So the pressure therapy really helps.
Awesome.
And you were asking about the service dog?
Yeah, what exactly he or she does, and she was saying that the dog is on your pressure points, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's very interesting.
And she can sense when these tremors are about to happen, or she can sense when I'm about to get anxiety, because my heart will start racing or my breathing will change, and she'll signal for that.
Wow. That the guy who has the PTSD that comes to the clinic, his dog does the same thing. I watch him in sessions. The dog, if he becomes anxious or feels like something's going on, his voice is raised or something, the dog will walk over to him and kind of touch him or lay on his side or do things that really, really help him, focus and become centered again, become mindful about where he is, that he's in a safe place. And I think that really helps him to be able to balance and be able to get the best out of his sessions.
I think people don't always understand that PTSD is actually an anxiety disorder. And so anxiety in general, the body reacts in a specific type of way, and there are many things that happen. The heart increases. The body basically is defending itself. And we've all heard the term fight or flight. The body is preparing itself to either have to defend itself or to flee. So things happen like our digestion, our salivation slows down, our heart races, our breathing may become more shallow. So coping strategies would be all of those things that would help our bodies to return to a normal state. And so sometimes it's a service animal, sometimes it's the way that we think, sometimes it might be biofeedback, it might be meditation. There are a number of coping strategies that people can use, but the main thing is to try to get people to return to the balanced state that our bodies should be in, where our hearts are beating at a normal pace, our breathing is at a normal rate, and our bodies are reacting the way that they should.
Yeah, progressive relaxation is a good technique. It's a way of kind of going through your body movements, kind of looking at breathing and being mindful where your body's state is, sometimes I just tell people in sessions, take 3 really, really deep breaths, and then they can focus a little bit more on what's going on.
Ma'am, how long have you had your service service animal?
He actually, we rescued her from a family friend. So I've only had her about 1.5 years now.
Okay, and then you've seen a tremendous difference between...
And she just started doing service training 8 months ago, so she's picked up stuff really fast.
Well, good for you. I'm glad that you have her to help you through that. That's awesome.
And I just wanted to let your listeners know, a little bit about service dogs, if that's okay.
Absolutely, and you really could have helped a lot of people who say, you know what, that might be good for me or good for my child,
Yes.
All righty.
First, and it's just important that the dog gets training, because you can't just take your pet into the store and call them a service dog. That's cool. The dog needs specialized training so that they're quiet and they can be ignored, essentially, in public. Also, if you see a service dog in public, don't bother them, don't ask to pet them, leave them alone, let them do their job. Because sometimes if you're distracting the service dog, you can injure the person that they're trying to look after because they aren't paying attention to them like they should. Or taking pictures and videos, sometimes that's very stressful because we're just trying to go out in public and do our daily life. We're not trying to be broadcasted.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It can be very distracting. So, I mean, there are actually a lot of rules related to service animals, and the general public doesn't know about them. So I'm really, really glad you called in today, because the general public needs to really be educated on how service animals are used and that they should not be approaching service animals. That was excellent. And that and usually service animals are well trained, and that you're right, they're quiet, they're inconspicuous, you don't even know they're there, and they really try to do their job. And so the public just needs to know that that's to leave them alone and let them do the job.
Yes, definitely. The last thing I wanted to mention was, if you don't mind, was just for people who just bring their normal pets in the store. It's really harmful when when somebody brings a regular pet in the store that's not trained, because, again, they could distract the dog, and it's also against health code to, put your dogs in baskets and things like that for sanitary purposes, like if somebody's putting their food in a grocery basket and somebody's dog has been in it.
Right.
Yeah, that's excellent point.
Tips, yeah.
Sometimes people will think they have a cute little dog, tiny, and, that they can bring them anywhere, but you can't.
It's still a dog. It's still an animal.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to bring them to certain, especially food
Yes.
facilities.
Thank you so much for calling in and giving us that information. Truly.
Thank you for allowing me to educate people.
Yes. But let me say this. I do have a dog, and I like to go to pet-friendly places. So there are a lot of places where you can take your dog, and it's pet-friendly, like pet stores
Find those
and dog
places.
parks and places like that. They are really good, and that helps the person too emotionally. So that's good.
Thank you. Have a good night. Okay.
And you have a good night too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
All right. So 823-9110, 823-9110. How are you dealing with your condition, whether it's bipolar disorder, depression, PTSD, anxiety, all of the above. Okay. I also want to throw out there before we really get into this conversation that if you need some help right now, then I have the hotline for the National Suicide Prevention. It's called the Lifeline. That is 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. Even if you're fine right now, but you know you have suicidal thoughts regularly, I would suggest you put this on your phone just in case, okay? 1-800-273-8255. All right, so we'll talk about this one question and then we'll go to break. But when people think of mental illness or mental conditions or disorders, you know, they automatically think, oh, crazy, you know. Am I crazy? She crazy. And that can really be derogatory. So what is the true definition or the most politically correct definition of mental illness or a mental condition or disorder?
When we think of that, mental illness, a disorder, condition, they can be used interchangeably. But it's any set of conditions that impact a person in terms of the way they think, in terms of their emotion, or in terms of their behavior. And generally, it becomes diagnosable if it interferes with their ability to function on a daily basis. The most common mental illnesses that we see are depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder.
Okay.
And most of those disorders are diagnosable by the diagnostic manual. There's a diagnostic manual, DSM-5, and if you have a certain set of symptoms, you can, and those symptoms are prevalent, and you see a psychologist or a social worker or a psychiatrist, and they see that you have those symptoms, they can diagnose you with some type of disorder. Now, disorders vary. Some are more severe than others. We have to be real careful about saying everything is mental illness because some of them are more mild and some of them are more severe. The DSM-5 has actually categorized most disorders with mild, moderate, and severe. And so with that categorization,
I got you.
Those categories.
With those categories, you can actually have a milder form of something like ADHD or a mild form of depression or a mild form of anxiety, and as opposed to a more severe form, which may require different types of treatment methods.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good to me. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break, but I do want to hear from you, Hampton Roads, 757-823-9110. If you want to go ahead and put your 2 cents in there. I've already asked you, how are you dealing with your condition? We had a couple callers call in and tell us how they're dealing with their PTSD, with their anxiety. I want to know how you're dealing with yours because you can really help someone else. Also, what did you wish that your family and friends did more or less of while you were struggling or going through with your early stages of your disorder? Or even right now, if you are struggling with a disorder right now and you, kind of having a hard time, what do you wish your family would do more or less of? 757-823-9110 is the number. It is Hampton Roads Voices, the taboo of mental health in the Black community on Hot 91. Hot 91, your choice for hip hop and R&B soul. Happy new episode of Hampton Roads Voices. Yeah, tonight we're talking about the taboo of mental health in the Black community. It's time for us to talk about it, time for us to present solutions. And to help us do that today, or to help me do that, I have special guest experts. I have George Enos here. He is a licensed clinical social worker. He does his own private practice, but he also works with the Portsmouth Department of Behavior Health. And also have Dr. Ernestine Duncan. She is the chair of the psychology department of Norfolk State University. And we are having a great time. And of course, we have you, Hampton Roads. We want to hear your voice. So give us a call, 757-823-9110, 823-9110. And let us know how you are dealing with your condition. How are you getting through it? What are some ways that you think might have been very pivotal for you to help you through your condition? Your testimony can really help someone else. 823-9110. I'm also going to be throwing out some of these numbers to help someone who may be listening all show long. So the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255, or you can text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 741-741. Text START to 741-741. Now, I also have the number to the National Alliance of Mental Illness. It's NAMI. That number is 1-800-950-NAMI or 1-800-950-6264. Or, again, you can text NAMI, that's N as in Nancy, AM as in milk, I, to 741-741. That's going to be on our Facebook page for you. Alrighty, so Mr. Enos and Dr. Duncan, in your opinion...
Oh, can I
yes,
say something about those resources?
Please do.
In every city in the region, there's a community services board, and those community services board has a lot of resources for mental health and substance abuse and people with developmental disorders. And so those services are available to us. They have emergency services where they have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week clinicians who provide consultation and assessment and intervention if somebody needs to go to a hospital or need urgent type services. And if you don't need urgent type services, they also schedule outpatient services for mental health counseling and substance abuse services.
And
especially now. Huh?
And what is this called again?
It's the Community Services Board in the area that you live. So Portsmouth has one, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News, the Eastern Shore. The whole region has a Community Services Board where you live. Now, some of the Community Services Board have been renamed as Behavioral Health Authorities. And so you might, as you're looking them up, they may have a Behavioral Health Authority phone number up there, but it's for that region.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And it's for every city.
I'm going to look up that number, and I will have that for you, Hampton Roads, in a bit. Okay. So, let's start talking. In your opinion, Mr. Enos and Dr. Duncan, why do you think there is a stigma? Because it's definitely a stigma in the Black community about, getting some help mentally. Why do you think there is a stigma there, especially around mental disparities and conditions?
I think that, first of all, there's stigma around mental illness for all of us. And people are ashamed and afraid to admit that things are not going the way we think they should. In fact, I noticed at the beginning of this show, you kind of changed your language. You started out by saying, if you're suffering, and then you said, no, not if you're suffering, if you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to change our language as well to be able to not imply that there's something wrong with us if we have a psychological disorder.
Right.
I think that too many times we've thought that people were crazy because something was different with them mentally, and it actually could be an emotional issue, or it could be an intellectual issue, because there are those who may be developmentally delayed, intellectually disabled, that we refer to as crazy as well, when their issue really is that they have trouble with processing information. Then there are those who emotionally have issues. So I think that there's a lot of stigma in most communities about being able to admit when something is wrong with somebody or different with somebody emotionally or behaviorally. And because we've not always had a good track record in terms of how we've treated people with mental illness, you can go all the way back to the 1600s when people were thought to be witches and they were burned because they had mental illness, or they had holes drilled in their head to be able to let what they thought were humors or fluids out. We think about the history of lobotomies and shock treatment. And so there's a long history of how people have been treated, and the institutionalization of people who have mental illness. Also, I think the fact that there's managed health care issues. Sometimes people have great insurance, but the limitations come with their mental health benefits. So they only have a certain number of visits that they can use with a therapist, or they can only be seen a certain number of times a year. And we have to understand that implies then that there's something different about mental illness than physical illness.
Right.
And we have to face that. So I think those are some of the main reasons why people feel such a stigma with psychological illness, mental disorder.
So what I'm going to talk about is practical experience from what I see at behavioral health and in private practice. When people call to get services, they always have a hesitancy. And they have the hesitancy because of, what they've heard in the past, how they people may view and say, and things that they will say with friends and family members in terms of people with mental illness, just like she was saying, and then what their experience of it is. So some people will experience mental illness with, say, a neighbor or a friend or something, and it looks dramatic and it looks over the top, and the person is having hallucinations or delusions or something like that. And so they're like, oh, God, this is what crazy really looks like. And so that creates a stigma, because it's like, if you're that way, then something's wrong with you. When I believe that a lot of mental illness is, like the doctor was saying, a range of behaviors. Some of it's severe, some it's not so severe. You just have to know when to go to get help, depending on how severe it is. Now, sometimes it's judged by other people. I'm saying you're crazy.
Right.
You're saying I'm crazy when I think it's you crazy, and that's just opinion.
Yeah.
And it's a very different to have an opinion about whether or not somebody is ill, or somebody is actually having symptoms that I said that are diagnosable by that DSM-5 that actually say that you actually need some help. And it depends on severity. I do think the deinstitutionalization that she talked about created some of this, because what that is you have a whole bunch of hospitals, even in this state and in other states, people who are moving out to the hospitals. They created medication, and they thought that medication was going to be the savior of all the people who are mental illness. So they gave some people medications, and then they started letting a lot of people out of the hospital. And some people were able to, communities weren't ready. They were not ready. You didn't have the housing for people. You didn't have the funding for people. You didn't have the places for people to go to get medication. But people were still let out. Now, they tried to transition some people, and some people transitioned well. And most of the people, I would say, have done well. But then there are others who got out. They were used to being in institutions. They were used to having people giving their food and taking care of them every day and taking them to activities. And then they had to create this world for themselves. And they were not able to manage it. And so some of them had trouble functioning out in the community. And they may have been some of the people the other people saw and thought, oh, my God, is this what mental illness looks like? But what I have to say is, with clinics and outpatient treatment and support anybody with any kind of illness, whatever range it is, can get help. Sometimes it may be medication that can help them. Sometimes it's just talk therapy, and just giving techniques for how to manage thinking and feelings and all the things that go along with emotional illness. And depending on severity, you may have to see a psychiatrist and get some medication for that. So.
Okay. Alrighty. 823-9110, 823-9110 is the number. How are you dealing with your condition? Whether you have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or depression, PTSD, anxiety, whatever the case may be, how are you dealing with your condition? Because sharing your story can really help someone else. Alrighty. So when we return, we're going to get into if we can indeed pray away the mental illness. Also, we're going to be getting into if one has been feeling not like themselves in the latter part of their life. For the most part, they have been healthy, and then now they're feeling like something may be a little off with me mentally. We'll get into the details of that. So 823-9110, 823-9110. I want to hear from you, Hampton Roads. Call and share your story, and you can definitely remain anonymous. Keep it locked. It's Hot 81. Hampton Roads Voices, the taboo of mental health in the Black community. Hot 81, your choice for hip hop and R&B soul. Yes, brand new episode of Hampton Roads Voices. Kilo is here. And tonight we're talking about the taboo of mental health in the Black community. So important because, we bad enough we don't even want to take care of ourselves sometimes, in a generalization speaking, physically. We kind of let ourselves go physically. So when we get to the mind and our emotions, and when we're not doing so well, or when we're not so healthy in that arena, the first thing we want to say, oh, girl, you crazy. Or with someone who is sympathetic with you, but may be ignorant to seeking help, you know what? You could just pray it away. Let's pray about it. We going to be all right. And yes, praise the Lord. Healing belongs to us, but we have to, take advantage of those resources that God has given us, like our therapists and our doctors and our clinical social workers and things of that nature. So that is what this conversation is all about. Dispelling that stigma, dispelling that taboo around seeking mental health and getting healthy. Ain't nothing wrong with seeking help. Pride can kill you, literally. So if you are dying inside of yourself because you don't want to seek out help, then you know what? That's why we are here to get rid of that. Okay. So we have special guest experts with me today. Dr. Ernestine Duncan. She is the chair of the psychology department of the Norfolk State University. And I have George Ennals here. He is a licensed clinical social worker. He does his private practice, and he also works with the Portsmouth Department of Behavioral Health. And what I've been saying is I'm going to be giving out phone numbers all show long to those who may need it. Okay. Store it in your phone. If you're feeling okay now, that's good. But if you know you have spells sometimes and it comes in waves in and out, then you need to take down this information to help you later. All right. So we have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. We have the National Alliance of Mental Illness at 1-800-950-NAMI. That is 1-800-950-6264. And like Mr. Ennals was saying, each city and each region, they have their own community services board or a behavioral health authorities. And thanks to my best friend, she just texted me. She let me know the contact information for two very popular in the city. So if you're on the south side and you want to get to Norfolk, the Norfolk Community Services Board, they are on East Virginia Beach Boulevard, and that phone number is 757-664-7699. That will be on our Facebook page. Again, the Norfolk Community Services Board, 664-7699. And then on the peninsula, the Hampton Newport News Community Services Board, 757-788-0300, 788-0300. And again, Mr. Ennals, really quick, can you tell us a little bit about what the Community Services Board does?
Okay, the Community Services Board provides a variety of mental health, substance abuse, and services for people with developmental disorders. And that usually includes some type of outpatient services for people with opiate addictions, alcohol addictions, or any variety of addictions, as well as mental health services. We each community services board has a medication management unit where they provide psychiatric services. They usually have psychiatrists, nurses that actually support people who have severe mental illness, and usually very, very good, conscious people that can help people with problems. Those people usually also have a therapist or a case manager. Case managers' responsibilities are to coordinate, monitor, help a person get services in the community that they wouldn't be able to get themselves. Therapists usually help with therapy kinds of things, help them deal with emotional illness, depression, anxiety, and that sort of thing. And, of course, your psychiatrists work with medication.
Right. So all of that is at your disposal, and those numbers will be on our Facebook page.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please, sir.
Just as very important, each community service board has an emergency services unit. They provide 24 hours, 7 days a week emergency services. And if a person you feel like a person is a danger to themselves or others, you should be contacting them. You feel like they have a mental illness and they're a danger to themselves or others, then they should be contacted.
They need to contact. Okay. Sounds good to me. Alrighty, so 823-9110, 823-9110. If you are not suffering or if you're not dealing with a condition, but you know what? You know somebody who is, or your mom did when you were growing up, or you have a sister who did, and you want to share your testimony about how you dealt with that or how you helped them through it or how you saw how they probably did suffer for a little bit and then they seeked out help and now they're doing better. I want to hear about that. 823-9110, 823-9110. It's not called Hampton Roads Kilo. It's called Hampton Roads Voices, and I want to hear yours. Okay. Alrighty. So you know what? I hear sometimes, I was working with this particular young lady, and she said her, I'll say about 24, 25-year-old cousin, something in him just snapped, she said. And he was healthy, or he was fine for the first 24 years of his life. And then something happened. He started to act a little differently, and then the family was kind of taken aback, like, what in the world? What's wrong with him? So in these instances where for the most part and the most of their lives, people are healthy, and then something happens mentally or emotionally that will spark an illness or a condition. What is that about? Can you explain that to us as best as you can?
Well, usually people are healthy, up to a certain age, and usually there's some type of stressor or emotional trauma or something that happens that will take people over the top. Sometimes that's drugs. They get into certain types of drugs that are probably not good for them, and if they already have a genetic propensity for illness, they use and their biochemistry and how all that stuff works together, they may end up it might take them over the top, and they may have an episode. So that's kind of how that works. Now, with certain disorders like schizophrenia and that kind of stuff, they use that usually for most people when they're moving from young adulthood into adulthood, and they have a whole lot of start to have responsibilities, and they start working and life stressors. Yeah. That often can, if you have that propensity or that genetic component, that may send you over the top also. So it kind of just depends. It's a combination of things for most people in life. It's genetics as well as your environment and triggers. And triggers could be drugs. They could be stressors. They could be it could be biochemical things going on. It could be a bunch of things that might contribute to whatever illness a person might get.
A number of things have to be assessed and evaluated before we can really know what's going on with someone. But something that you said kind of triggered something in me, and that is for the diagnosis of schizophrenia, we generally do not see the first break, we call a psychotic break, until early 20s, mid 20s. Wow. So it's a disorder that may not manifest itself at all until late adolescence. And people don't understand adolescence extends all the way into early 20s.
Oh.
But generally, one of the things that we see with schizophrenia, and this is in no way to say her cousin had schizophrenia, but I thought about it when you said his age. And we do kind of look at that as one of the criteria in the DSM-5. The onset has to be at about age 20, after 18, between the ages of 18 and 25.
Very interesting. Okay, so if we do notice that something is wrong, or we noticed, or we're looking at our loved one, something is wrong, or even within ourselves, what are some common symptoms of, the early onset, or even if, we've been dealing with some of these symptoms, what are they that we can be looking for, or that kind of go hand in hand with, all right, it's time to go seek help?
I can give you a number of symptoms.
Please do.
Because when people call, they're calling because they're having some kind of symptom. And usually they're having some kind of symptom of anxiety. They're having some kind of depression. Sometimes they may be, for certain people, they might be experiencing sensations or hearing voices or things that, with their senses, that they have not experienced before. And they know sometimes that it is unusual. A lot of people come in through our emergency services department because they experience this stuff and they react to it. They hear voices telling them to do something to themselves or do something to others, or they just keep hearing the voice and they don't know how to manage it. And so what we often do is just go out and, like the doctor was saying, do an assessment. And then once that assessment, we can tell whether or not, it's actually mental illness or something else going on. And if it is, we try to get the person help. So in terms of help, we try to get them into a hospital. You have local hospitals that are a resource. You have state hospitals that are resources. Or you try to, if it's milder form of the disorder, you may go to an outpatient therapist like, come see me.
So when somebody call you, or when they come to you when you were working in the field before you started teaching, doctor, what kind of symptoms was that when they call you and say, hey, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that, because somebody out there may be feeling those things, but they're like, it might not be anything. I might just be tripping. So what do those symptoms look like?
Well, I wanted to say that most immediately, anytime somebody reports that or admits that they feel like they want to hurt themselves, or they feel as though they want to hurt someone else, those are very serious statements. They need to be addressed very seriously, and those people need help. They need help to be evaluated. Do they have a plan on how they're going to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else? Do they have access to that plan? Somebody says, I'm going to shoot myself. Do you have a gun? Well, no, I don't have a gun. All right, well, okay, you can feel a little bit more comfortable with that, as opposed to the person who says, well, yeah, I keep a gun upstairs locked in a box. Okay, so that's a very serious risk right
urgent,
there.
right.
So clearly when somebody is a threat to themselves or someone else, that needs immediate attention. Other symptoms, though, can vary. As Mr. Eno said, you can have a mild disorder, moderate symptoms of the disorder, or severe. And the general theme is that as a person's symptomatology increases, the less able they are to function in their social environment, their occupational environment, or with their family and friends. So I may be depressed and I feel sad, and that might be a mild form of it. But then I may feel depressed and, it affects my eating, and I've lost a couple of pounds because I don't eat. And we talk about that as an eating dysregulation, because there are some people who are depressed and they eat more and they gain weight.
Right.
But that might be more moderate symptoms of depression. And then for someone who's so depressed they can't get out of the bed. Right. Or they don't sleep at night at all, then those are going to warrant different types of interventions, because the type of symptoms have varied from mild to moderate to severe. With anxiety, it would be a different set of symptoms. I just may feel nervous all the time, mild. So nervous I can't think. I get distracted by, thoughts that something's going to happen to me. Or I'm so anxious, as people we've talked to today have said, I don't go outside. I prefer to be inside. So symptoms are different.
Gotcha.
Depending upon the severity and depending upon the disorder.
So if you know that you feel different, that is enough to seek a professional, regardless of what being the details of your symptoms. If you feel like you are a little different and you might need to seek help, then that's symptom enough, if I say so myself. And we do have a phone call, 823-9110. 823-9110. I threw out a whole lot of questions, but I just want to hear your 2 cents. So either you yourself have a condition and you are doing well with it, or you're not doing too well. Call in and share your story. If you have a loved one who has a condition and you've watched them suffer, you watched them get help, I want to hear your story as well. Or, you know what, you've been going through some things and your family or friends haven't been doing the best that they have been doing. I want to know what can they have done differently or do more of or less of, because you know what, all of these questions and the answers to these questions can help somebody out there. 823-9110. Hi, 91, you're live on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, this is Patricia.
Hi, Patricia. I'm sorry I just asked you for your name because we're going to keep everybody anonymous tonight. But
okay.
Yeah, go ahead and go ahead and tell me your question, comment, or concern, please.
Oh, no problem. Actually, I have a question for Dr. Duncan. How you doing, Dr. Duncan?
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I have a friend, and she has a son. He's a senior in high school, and he's more, I wouldn't say he's more so of a loner, but he just preferred to do things, to himself. I mean, not physically, not hurting himself or anything like that. For instance, he's in fear of applying for a job, because he really thinks everybody's like really looking at him, or a lot of things is focusing on him. So even though it seems like it's more so of an anxiety thing, like socially, because he's even in fear of speaking out. As a parent, should she be addressing this now before it becomes a disorder? So I guess, can that anxiety become a disorder later on in life?
Yes. Anxiety is one of many types of psychological reactions that, when untreated, can become more problematic. I'm not sure how old this young man is, but I will tell you that developmentally, there's a stage that adolescents go through, and it's called adolescent egocentrism. And they are very self-conscious and very self-focused. This is the time in which you tell them to wear a pair of sneakers that are out of style, and they're like, no, everybody's going to be looking at my feet and I'm not wearing them.
Right,
and it's an unrealistic kind of fear that people are paying more attention to you than they really are. But we've all been through that. Sometimes when that gets extreme, and when adolescents then are fearful to do things, they may have a type of social anxiety, but it's really hard to know that without. I'm a very big proponent of evaluation and assessment. I think it's irresponsible for us to talk about what might be wrong with someone diagnostically without doing tests to support that. I don't want my doctor telling me that I have heart disease when he has not drawn any blood, he has not done an EKG. And so there does need to be an assessment. I think that in terms of his mom, I would hope that they can begin to have some conversations about what's going on with him. Why is it that he feels that everybody's looking at him and he's not able to go apply for a job? And to maybe start a dialogue about that will help inform her about how severe and maybe how possibly unrealistic his fears are. And then once she had a better sense of that, I think she might have a better sense of which direction to go. Do they need an intervention with a clinician, or is this something that she just might want to monitor for a while?
Oh, okay. Great advice. I'll let her know.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely will. I also have a question for the young man that's on the panel as well.
Mr. Enos, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hey, how you doing, sir?
How you doing?
All right.
Good.
I have a niece that she's identified. Well, she was identified when she was in high school, and my brother is currently now trying to find.
You said, I'm sorry. You said identified. Identified. What do you mean?
She was going through special need classes in high school.
Oh, okay.
And now that she's graduated, he's trying to seek assistance for her, working within the community and everything. And every time he goes to like day support school for her, they always mention a Medicaid waiver, some type of waiver so she can receive assistance. But it said it takes pretty much like a year just for her to receive it. Do your facility offer that?
Well, let me tell you about Medicaid waivers. The state of Virginia has a number of Medicaid waivers that they have, the General Assembly has budgeted and put out into the community, and community services boards have ensured that certain people with a certain need get those waivers. Over the years, there have been so much demand for those waivers that they have not been able to get as many waivers in the community as they'd like. So the money is simply not there. So what happens is someone like that you're talking about goes on a waiting list, and they get all the testing and everything. They say they're appropriate for a waiver. They go on a waiting list, and as the state appropriates money for it, then they get then more waivers are gotten.
Yes, sir.
It's been really a challenge each year. Now, each year they appropriate a certain amount of waivers. I've been on a waiver team, and with a waiver team, there's about 3 or 4 people who looks at like 50 to 100 cases of people who all have severe need. And we have to prioritize that list and figure out who has the most severe need. And those are the people how the waivers get selected. So it depends really on severity, how severe someone is. So, I mean, the good thing is that you have to apply, and you have to make sure you're on that waiver waiting list. And as if they do interim things, or if they provide interim services, make sure that person gets those interim services.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your information.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for calling in.
All right, thanks again.
All righty. Bye-bye. 823-9110, 823-9110. If you have questions like that, or if you just want to share your story, this is a safe place, okay? Everybody's going to remain anonymous. If I accidentally ask you your name because it's like second nature for me, ignore me. Just ignore me. Okay, so the taboo of mental health in the Black community, that is what we are talking about. And again, we were talking about the Community Services Board or behavior health authorities in your area, okay? And we do have a question. The question came in via Instagram, and it could go to you, Mr. Ennals, but if you know a little bit, Dr. Duncan, please go ahead and jump in. So he wants to know the dynamics between the CSB, which is these Community Services Board, and the law enforcement. Quote, especially in the Black community, is behavior health services responsible for doing assessments when officers approach someone who may have a mental illness? So do you know the dynamics between the two?
Well, what I know is that community services boards and the police department have been working together to do what we call CIT officers. These are officers that have specialized training in dealing with people with mental illness. And what we've tried to do now, I knew we got a number of CIT officers in Chesapeake when I was working there. I know we have some CIT officers in Portsmouth, and they have them at most community service boards. They have them, and so what they train on is what happens at a scene, and trying to determine whether or not a person has a mental illness or not, and if they do, how to manage that person on the scene. The more CIT officers, the better, because at least they have some sense about what's going on and how to manage a situation with a shooter. It really has nothing to do with that person. It has to do with what that officer knows about the situation and how to manage it. So it's an initiative right now in all the CSBs to actually get enough police officers that have enough knowledge about mental illness and actually be able to manage that person on the scene.
Okay. All right. Sounds good to me. So we're going to take a break, but I do want to hear from you, Hampton Roads, 823-9110, 823-9110. Are you dealing with a condition, bipolar disorder, depression, PTSD, anxiety, whatever it may be? How are you dealing with it? We had great calls in the beginning of the show. One young lady said that she has a service dog, and that's really helping her. Another young man called in and said that he is dealing with PTSD and how it was really bad in the beginning, but he got some medication and he's dealing with it. And he got some more tips from our special guest experts on the show. So if you want tips for yourself or you just want to share how you're dealing with it and that can help somebody else, please do so. 823-9110, 823-9110. When we return, we're going to be talking about the specific symptoms for a specific disorder or an illness. So we kind of tiptoed around it, Dr. Duncan did, but we're going to get more into that when we return, okay? And I'm going to give you some very important phone numbers that you should have. So make sure you keep it locked. It is Hampton Roads Voices, the taboo of mental health in the Black community, right here on Hot 91. Hot 91, your choice for hip hop and R&B soul. Brand new episode of Hampton Roads Voices. It's entitled "The Taboo of Mental Health in the Black Community." Yes, we are talking about it. We are facing it head on, and we are offering you solutions. There is nothing wrong with you saying, "Hey, I am sick. Hey, I have an issue. Something is not right with me and I need help." There's nothing wrong with that. There's so much strength in looking for help that, that's what we are encouraging tonight on this show. We have special guest experts, Dr. Ernestine Duncan. She is the chair of the psychology department of the Norfolk State University. Hold on for a second, because I don't know why I can hear. Oh, that's why. Okay. And then we also have George Enos. He is a licensed clinical social worker. He has a private practice and also with the Portsmouth Department of Behavior Health. Chris, you can come on in here and give them the waters. Yes. Behind the scenes stuff happening right now. So, and we also have you. So somebody who just called, they hung up the phone, and I really wish you would have stayed on the line. Give us a call back so we can continue this conversation. 823-9110, 823-9110, and we'll put you right through, okay? I want to know if you're dealing with a condition. How are you dealing with it? What's good for you? What's the best technique for dealing with this? Also, if you have a loved one and you have questions for them, or you've watched them struggle and you've watched them conquer it, I want to hear your story as well. 823-9110, 823-9110. And we have some very special phone numbers for you, for the Community Services Board for your city. Also, the National Alliance of Mental Illness and that National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. All of those are on our Facebook, WNSB Hot 91.1 FM. But I am going to put out the Suicide Lifeline, because, that is dire. So 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. That is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Okay. All right. So we were tiptoeing around the certain symptoms of certain disorders or conditions. And some people may feel as though I may be suffering from anxiety, or this might be PTSD. And you are going to reach out for help because you're listening right now. So you're going to reach out first thing in the morning or on Monday. But what are some common symptoms, for the most popular disorders that we see today? So bipolar disorder, depression, run them down from mild to severe. I like how you were doing that earlier, Dr. Duncan.
So want to start with depression?
Okay, we can start with that.
In order to get a diagnosis of depression, one necessary characteristic is a sad or depressed mood. It sometimes in children is manifest as irritability.
Children can have depression.
Children can have depression.
Okay.
And so we look for some mood change, depression, sadness, or irritability. There are some people who will show symptoms, and as Mr. Enos says, there's actually criteria that's listed in the DSM-5 that a person has to meet. That criteria not only talks about specific types of symptoms, but it talks about duration of the symptoms. So you can't just diagnose somebody with a major depression if they've only been depressed for a week or so. Right. It has to be a period of time. We look also for disturbances in sleep. Disturbances because there are some people with depression who sleep a lot, but then there are some people with depression who have insomnia and don't sleep at all. So we talk about that as a disturbance. There's a dysregulation in eating for some people. They meet this criteria. They may eat too much, or they may not eat enough. Other diagnostic symptoms, if you could help me,
Of depression?
Of depression.
It's mostly, I think, related to mood. And I would say mood and thinking, because most depressed people they feel bad, and when they feel bad, they think bad thoughts. You know, I feel bad. I can't get out of bed. I hate doing this. Whatever they're doing, you know, they think bad thoughts.
It's like glass half empty.
Yeah, it's like glass half empty. Exactly, Dr. Duncan. So one kind of goes with the other, and it's sort of like I see it like a roller coaster, because as you start having one symptom, you add to another symptom, and it all goes downhill. So you could have the sleep disturbance, you could have the appetite disturbance, you can have the depression, you can have a little bit of anxiety, and you have your thought disorder, your thought processes that are real negative, and then you end up in a slump and you won't go out the house, and it's a snowball effect in terms of how it happens to someone for depression.
And in my training, we used to call it anhedonia.
Anhedonia,
but people have. We might be old. But it's little pleasure in doing things.
Right.
So things that used to be very enjoyable to you, you no longer enjoy doing them, and that's another symptom of depression.
Okay. So anxiety, and then that can kind of go hand in hand with PTSD, because you said earlier, Dr. Duncan, that PTSD is a form of anxiety. So off the top of your head, if you can think, what do some of those symptoms look like?
Well, as a class of disorders, anxiety includes PTSD, but it also includes obsessive compulsive disorder. People talk about OCD. And that's another anxiety disorder. And this is a class of disorders that has as one of its main symptoms people feeling, and I think the first caller talked a lot about being hypersensitive. So these are people who are just really sensitive to stimuli around them. They may have a startle response if something drops. Their response to it seems exaggerated than what other people might be. And that's because they are in that defensive mode of fight or flight. Their thinking has a lot to do with what they think could possibly happen. Their thinking is somewhat catastrophic. Like if something happens, it's the worst thing that could possibly come out of it. They also are in a hypersensitive physical state, meaning that these are people that generally might have higher blood pressure, might have some type of coronary heart disease because their hearts are always beating faster, working harder than other people. They may breathe more shallow, which is why Mr. Eno says one of the treatments he may use with people is just to slow down and take 3 deep breaths, because that helps us to center and to focus. Other anxiety symptoms?
Well, one of the things you mentioned, Dr. Duncan, was thinking errors. And I think we as human beings all have a myriad of thinking errors that go on. And one that you mentioned was catastrophizing. You know, it's when you think that, you know, everything is going wrong and everything's going downhill, or you're making things worse than they are. And when you come to therapy, that's something that needs to be managed. It's those thinking errors. Some other thinking errors might be,
Brain fart. Yeah. It's okay. If you get it back, just let me know. Okay. So
all or nothing thinking.
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
all one way or it's the
way.
other way. It's not any gray in the middle. And when people think, there's always some permeation of gray in terms of how you think about something and the way you should do something. But there are a myriad of thinking errors that we all go through. I'm having a brain fart. I can't remember them all right now, but there are a myriad of thinking errors that people go through that become symptoms.
We do
that
have
need to be managed.
We have more symptoms. 757-823-9110, 823-9110. We'll be talking about maybe the symptoms of bipolar depression, or it's another word for it, but bipolar disorder. Yes. And then
well, remember, bipolar is a range of disorders, and you can have severity from one side to the other. And
we'll be talking about that too, and schizophrenia as well. But let's get to the phone lines, and then we'll get back to that. Hi, 91, you're live on the air. Who am I speaking? Oh, I'm sorry. Don't answer that. Just first of all, turn down your radio for me, and then share your question, comment, or concern. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yes, how you doing?
Yes, I'm doing well. How are you?
This came man from Newport News.
Okay.
I've been it's a certain by paranoid schizophrenic people, man. I think that it's a broad variety, just like bipolar that the man has said, and I think that it has a positive effects and its negative effects, but also too, I think about that how can it have its positive effects, and I think about the pastors and the people that it's like, you think about the psychics and prophets are the opposite end of who they're doing it for, which is themselves, the psychics, and prophets for God. So how can somebody like that will question their sanity? You know, both psychics and prophets. So is that in a category of schizophrenic? Now I think about it, and I say, you know, God made everybody perfect and unique, which it says in the Bible. And I was 1 in a million of my father's semen to make it to the egg. So God didn't make no jump. But if I don't have the resources and I don't have the right platform to go ahead and do what God made me to do is to pursue in this lifetime, how can somebody shun me out and throw me medicine and just sit there and just blot out with something that's special that they just don't understand? You know what I mean? I think paranoid schizophrenic people are just a title, you know, and if people push out there that you got to be this certain way and just dumb you down with TV and all this other stuff like that. So I don't really need, I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just wanting to express myself about that because that's a hot topic of what I try to tell people. You just don't understand me. That, you know, I always have that. And when they do, they have time. It's great. It's beautiful. They see me who I am. You know, I just wanted to say that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm caveman out here. I Newport News downtown.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
And this is a safe place, so thank you for sharing.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you calling because there are a lot of, like Kara was saying, there's a lot of stigma related to mental illness, and I believe that people with mental illness go through a whole lot, you know, internally. Mm-hmm. And
they take it so serious. Everything is serious.
And yeah, they do because of their sensitivity to the world and the things that are going on around them, you know. And I think it's very important that we understand that, we see the person for what they are. They're not, the person is not schizophrenic. That's just something that they have, you know. Yeah. And that's, if it's an illness, just like any other illness, damage with your foot or your knees, it can be treated. For some people it's more severe, some people less severe, but when you get help with somebody who understands
and one thing too, it's curable. If you're attentive to it, it cures within 6 months. That is the craziest thing. You know what I mean? People think they was born like this. Oh, you were born gay, you were born, and God made it perfectly in his image. You know what I mean? So people think there's this and that. Man, it's just sin, man. Stop fronting.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's something that needs to be managed.
It's something that needs to be addressed.
It needs to be
not even managed, because sometimes you just dismiss and you continue being a human being. You know what I mean?
And it's true. I'm glad you said that. Everybody's a human being, and they have to be treated with dignity and respect in terms of how you manage what's going on with them.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for calling. I really appreciate you.
I love y'all.
All right. Love you too, brother.
Good evening.
All right. So before, man, we didn't even tap into what we really wanted to tap into because, you know, we're having a good time having a conversation. But Let's see where we can jump down to. Oh, okay. Loved ones who would like to support those who may be going through a mental disorder. What is your advice to helping those loved ones support their loved ones?
Well, one of the things that's important, it depends on family. You know, we as Black family, you know, we try to stay connected and be supportive of one another and understand when a family member or somebody we're close to goes through something.
Right.
I mean, that's our community. That's who we are as people. And so when somebody is acting different or they're experiencing depression or having anxiety, it's important that you're there for them, that you're actually communicating with them on an ongoing basis, because a lot of people, when they're having emotional problems, they hide. You know, they sometimes hide in their rooms. They hide away from people that loved ones. And so if you see these kinds of things where people are acting different and out of their normal range of acting, then it's a time to have a conversation about it, to communicate about it, and then engage them in something that might be helpful for them. Now, our community, when something like this happens, sometimes we use church as a helpful tool. And this is how we have to look at it. There's a range of tools that we can use to actually help us with whatever situation on. Yes. Sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's a family member, sometimes it is the church, and then sometimes it may extend to professional help.
Yeah, and just like you said, it's a range of tools. So more than one tool is the best way. Church, yes, absolutely. Prayer, absolutely. But let's get them a professional. All righty, so this one, okay. Just like we can maintain our physical health, and this can be our last question before we wrap it up. But just like we can maintain our physical health, we're working out, we're eating healthy, how can we maintain our emotional and our mental health? How can we make sure that we remain healthy? Is there a way?
There is a way. And I like what you have been saying tonight about creating safe spaces. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the things we don't do enough is to talk about our mental health with each other. And so I think families and loved ones can be supportive and accepting of those. And when we have the conversations, you talk to a neighbor, you talk to a friend, but make sure you're also talking to the person who has the mental illness, because many times what we do is we shun them and we talk to everybody else, and we don't talk to them. And we have to provide a safe place, a place of what's called unconditional positive regard. So we separate the person from what they're going through and what's happening to them. It's not that you're a bad person, but perhaps the things that you're doing right now are not the most positive. So it's not that you're the problem, but it's the things that you're doing that are the problem. I will always care for you, love you, want to see the best for you. And sometimes that means we have to do things to stop you from doing these bad behaviors. So that's the first thing that I would say, and that is creating the safe space that allows us to be able to have the conversations. Secondly, to be accepting, so that once we hear something that maybe we didn't expect to hear, or we weren't really prepared to hear, that we still take the time to process it and be okay with it, ultimately, and to be honest about that. You've given the number tonight several times of the National Alliance for Mentally Ill, NAMI. That also is a support group for family members and caregivers of those who are mentally ill. So sometimes caregivers or those family members who have family members that are mentally ill, they need support too.
Right.
They need to ask for the help that they need. So those are some of the things that I think we can do. But the question was, what can we do to maintain our mental health? One is we can set healthy boundaries. Sometimes we overextend way too much. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for not so good reasons. So we have to set boundaries. We have to eat properly. We have to get adequate rest. We have to find those things that bring us peace and joy and help us to find beauty in the world. And I believe that when we do those things, it allows us to then build on a good, solid mental health foundation and have good coping skills.
I like that.
We also need to address, I would say, our demons. You know, those things that you have had in the past that you haven't addressed, and you carry them around with you, and they cause you anxiety, and they keep you from moving forward. You have to address those things and address them in a healthy way. And the healthy way would be to do some of the things that Dr. Duncan has said, is that you're aware of them, you know that they exist in you, and you manage them in a way that's in a healthy way for yourself. You put them in a place in your brain and say, okay, this is going to come up, but I'm going to manage this, and I'm going to get through it. So doing things in a healthy way is absolutely the best way to get through any kind of psychological.
I like that.
And I think something that we do way too often, it's easy for us to do, is to say we're okay when we're not okay.
Right.
You know, somebody asks you what's wrong. Oh, nothing, I'm good. When really you're not good. And so for one, you're not being honest. For two, people who could give you the support or maybe whatever else that you need, they don't know to give it to you because you've given them a false sense of what's going on with you. So just being in tune with what we're feeling and being able to convey that.
Yeah, throw that pride away. Throw that pride away. So we had a great conversation, and of course we can talk about this all night long, but we hope that you've gotten what you needed, that push to go get the help that you need, if you need the help, or the push to be a little bit more understanding, and you know a little bit more about your loved one who is suffering from or dealing with a condition, and you know, okay, maybe I know this now, because ignorance can be very dangerous. Okay, so I am encouraging you to put that pride aside and please go get the help that you need, my brother and my sister. Okay, so I want to thank our special guest experts today, Dr. Ernestine Duncan and also Mr. George Enos. Thank you for being here.
Okay, you're welcome. I enjoyed being here.
Yes,
thank you, and thank you for attacking a difficult conversation.
Absolutely. It was needed. It was needed. So don't forget that we have special phone numbers for you on our Facebook page. Our Facebook is WNSB Hot 91.1 FM. Type in that and then you will find us. Those numbers include the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. We have the National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, that is on our Facebook page. And we have the different Community Services Board who are here in your city that can help you with that, with an array of services for you. Okay, so look that up on our Facebook page too. Don't forget that we are rebroadcasting this episode on Sunday at noon. Okay, so Hampton Rose Voices always comes on Friday nights, brand new episode, and then that episode is going to rebroadcast on Sunday at noon. What else I got to tell you? Oh, don't forget that we have a YouTube channel. So this will be up in the middle of the week. But last week's episode, I forgot what we talked about last week, but it was good. But that is on our Facebook page. Life After Divorce. Yes, that's what we talked about on our YouTube channel right now, Hampton Rose Voices. Right now, go look that up. Thank you so much for listening. It has been Hampton Rose Voices, the taboo of mental health and the Black community. Keep it locked. It's Hot 91.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not those of Norfolk State University or WNSB FM. Thank you for listening.